Welcome to the Jamodi podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. How do you build confidence in your players?
I am more about building awareness. Self-awareness is so much stronger than self-confidence. You've heard, have you ever had a parent meeting before? Well, he just didn't have any confidence because he probably knows he's not very good. And he's not very good at what he wants to be good at. You know, everybody's good at something. I was telling you about to change my views about team shoes. One of the best teammates and voices in the locker room. He could come in and make a knockdown shot. He couldn't guard his shadow. But the kid knew what he was good at, and we use that as a strength. He's one of the kids we talk about all the time. You'll never find him in a record book here. But his attitude, because he was aware of what he was. And so that's what we push, is we push awareness. And then when you become aware of what you are, you can build confidence in what you are. You know, I kids come in, well, I'm not a very good shooter. Well, how much time do you spend shooting? You know, I mean, like, and then I said, but here's the thing, you know, you're not a very good shooter. So now we can build and build habits to improve your shooting. So I always, anytime it says, well, they've lost their confidence. Well, no, they are aware of the situation. You know, like my best player, if he walked in here right now, you would be like, how do you deal with that guy? Because we have worked on him being so aware. He'll miss 35 shots and shoot 35 more without losing any of it, because he knows that he's put the work in. He knows the belief we have. He knows who he is. He'll go on a weekend tournament and I'll say, how'd you play? He's like, horrible. And so I'll pull his stats up. He'll go drop 19, but that's bad for him in his eyes. And I'm like, that's a pretty good weekend, you know, and I did this and that. And so, you know, someone would say, well, if he thinks he's playing bad, maybe he doesn't have any self-confidence, because no, he's aware of who he is, you know. And he thinks back to in the game last year when we started the season, he started the first two games of the year at 43 points and 29 the next night, was upset with the 29. I was like, you realize your 29 is a lot of people's career high, you know, but that's just, he is aware of, he doesn't have a confidence problem. He's aware of who he is and what he can do. And so we talk about that, you know. First thing somebody says, well, they just don't have any confidence. No, well, let's talk about their awareness. Let's talk about what they know about themselves, what they know about the person that's getting the minutes ahead of them. You know, and that changes things. And so I think that's one of those words, like I'm really big on like using words correctly, using them in the right time, in the right place, and right definition. And so we started a word study on that, like self-confidence. Well, what is that? Am I confident in myself, or am I aware of my situation? Like I'm aware that I should not go enter into a marathon right now. But if you tell me, Greg, I think you'd be great at a marathon, and gave me the confidence to do it, and I did it, who's really at fault? And so that's where, again, it always falls back on telling kids the truth. And I think when you tell them the truth, you make them aware, and that's what builds to the confidence they need. You know, the hard part is how you deliver the truth.
That's what I was gonna ask. I could definitely see the connectors between how you tell the truth with your players and that building that awareness. I love the idea of, it's more about, I'm reading Alan Stein's book right now, Raise Your Game. And it's literally, I think the chapter yesterday was about self-awareness and how that's the most important thing. So right on the money with that. All right. So tell me what those truthful conversations look like, where you're building awareness without the idea of crushing maybe igniting more of a desire to build, you know.
You've heard the phrase, tough love, and then he comes back with, there's no tough without love first. It should be love tough. They got to know they understand why. We always talk about our why here. Our why in every decision we ever make is program, team, player. Every decision we make, whether it's what me and Matt are going to have for lunch, we better put the program first. And we tell them off the floor, we have the same thing. Everything is always program, team first, every decision. And so when I'm talking to you and I was like, Matt, I want, first of all, they got to know I care where I'm coming from. The second thing they have to understand is it's not about Matt. It's about Matt's skill set and Matt's role in our team. It's never personal. Coaching can't be personal. But it's hard for them to understand that, because And for some coaches too, something we added this year, we ask each player how they want to be coached. Can I coach you publicly, or do you need that one-on-one? Now that one-on-one still be the same message publicly. I mean, I'm not going to bring you over there and Matt, I want you to count to 10 and then tell me I can talk. You know, we still get on you and we'll do it and we're going to correct you. But some guys, you know, they don't like that in front of their friends and their peers. They want to. And so we ask our kids, how do you want to be coached? Then we started having individual parent meetings with the player. And then that's where some of the truth comes out, because I don't want to tell Matt, hey, I think you're a really good shooter, a little weak on defense. It's going to be hard for me to play in certain situations. You go home and, hey, how's practice? Oh, it's fine. It's all right. Well, mom and dad are trying to have a conversation with you about it, and you don't really want to talk about it. And all they get from you is what you're willing to share.
Mm.
You know, that you may leave out. It depends on the type of person you are. You may leave out that, well, coach said I'm shooting the ball really well, but if it's not defending, you may just say, no, he said I was shooting the ball really well. Well, then they come and watch a game and you're not playing in a situation and they're like, well, he said he's shooting well, or, you know, and so we've started including that. I don't use the word family when I talk about my team, because these two guys behind me are my family. Those are my two sons. And yes, I love the players that play for me, but families, I have, in my role and in your role, I have to cut players. I'm never going to call my son Hayden or Evan and say, hey, buddy, had a great year, but numbers just aren't working out. I'm not going to bring you back next year. So I hate to use the word family about teams. I know some people do. I don't. We talk about it being our program, and that's an important word to us too. But we had that meeting because I want everybody involved. Mom, dad to understand what I'm telling the son. And then the biggest question is, can you handle it? And I'm not talking to the player. I'm talking to mom and dad, because some of the issues come from the parents' ego in the crowd. You know, like, can you understand that Matt is going to be our sixth man, but that right now, and all these things can change, but right now, if we're in a game and it's on the line for us to get a stop, I can't play him. And I need you guys to understand that and cheer your tail off for the five people on the floor, just like you would if your son was out there. And so,
what are the reactions like right there in that moment? What do you typically see from a parent?
I usually get the kind of look around like, is he really talking to us? Coach, you get the coach, I understand. Coach, I'll support it. And then I always finish it up with, this is the last time we're going to talk about that.
Mm.
And that makes it a little bit, and because I leave the door open for improvement, I leave the door open for other players to improve. I close the door on, we're going to discuss this again. We want you to accept that I'm doing what's best, and I always refer back to my two kids. I know what it's like to be a parent. My oldest son came over with he's in the first graduating class. We left a situation where he would have started 25 games his junior and senior year. He would have been a 2-year starter. He was our 8th man here. Hmm. He accepted that because it was right for our family at the time. My youngest son started part-time as a sophomore, every game as a junior until he got hurt, and every game as a senior. You see the people that forgot about the son that took one for the team, versus the son that was in a starting role. And so explain to them, I've sat in your seat. I know what it's like. I say this every year in my parent meeting. Everybody in this room wants their son and the 4 best players on the floor all the time. And if you don't, you're lying. You can't say that you're not there to watch your son play, but we talk about other things. But again, just them being aware and being involved in it and not having to rely on secondhand, I always tell them all the time, I could get a lot more done if I texted at halftime than I do talking to them. If I could come to my office, send a group text and say, hey, here's what we're going to do second half. Boop. And I could not even go in there and get the same point across, and probably more delivered better than and that's another rabbit hole going down. But it's like, again, just getting back to that conversation, that they got to know where you're coming from, and I don't coach everybody the same. I coach everybody fair. I told you, we do coach people different on our practice plan. Matt and Greg may have a red dot by it. You know what that means? Pull them to the side. That's a stop sign. Don't, ironically, we've had 2 kids that were red dots, One was my youngest son, because he felt that as our point guard and my son, that I took longer on him publicly. He didn't mind me coaching him and telling him he was making a mistake, but he felt that he took more of a hit in front of his teammates and his friends because of who he was. So I respect that. So I'm going to talk to you privately, but still give you the same talk. So
I think one thing you said was really smart. It was the fact that you bring in the parents to those important conversations. Adam Bradley, I got a chance to talk with him, with Lead 'em Up, and one of the things he was talking about is we always there's takes a village to raise a kid, right? And we're a part of the village. The parents are, but the problem is we talk to just the kid, but expect for the entire village to be on the same page, hearing the same message, even when it has to do with culture. You might have the most healthy thing going on, but if it doesn't go home with them and there's no real connection, then there's a part of it that's missing out. And I think by you bringing those parents in and having those conversations, it helps bridge that gap a little bit, for sure.
Yeah, we've always done what I'd call the corporate meeting, where you bring them all in. That's what you do. You do your paperwork, all that. But a guy that I worked with since we've been here, his name's John Mackey. He was the one who was pushed the most for that individual parent meeting. And like you said, somebody said the other day on Twitter, I read it. Most of your culture problems in your program start at the kitchen table. And when they're aware of what's going on and hear it firsthand from the coaching staff, maybe those conversations change. I used to always phrase it like this in a meeting: just because you don't like me, don't ruin it for your son, because he may love me and he's going to love me for the rest of his life. But then again, that makes it so confrontational and one side or the other. And so now, hey, we're going to have a meeting. I want you involved. I want to talk to you about your son's role. This is what I see. Doesn't mean he's seen me in this role. It means an improvement. He can improve. Also means if someone else improves, they may pass him. So we're just going to focus on improving and doing what's best for our program. Can you accept that? And
I think the not set in stone part is huge, because you have to allow the hope in that if I dedicate myself and focus and put in the work, that there's a chance. You eliminate that hope. It's like telling people to work on their shot, but they know deep down they're just a screener. Why work on my shot?
But that also goes into our conversation too about knowing who you are. I don't use the coach speech about, hey, just keep working hard. It's going to change for you. Man, I've seen people take a mule and work it to death, and it never turned into a thoroughbred. You are what you are. As they get older, the conversation gets a little harder with a senior. Windows closing. And they want to play because it's their last year, and you hear that. But I think just like giving them the direction, I would say the direction and the awareness of where you're at and where you're headed is so much more important than me just coming in, doing the coach talk about keep working hard. It's going to get, we want to tell them the truth and give them that roadmap to get there.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.